Have you ever seen a game and it instantly intrigued you? Whether it be the art style or gameplay or music or whatever. That's typically what me and my friends refer to as a me game. Just replace the me with your name. For me, these are usually games with vibrant colors or a unique setting and a cool, fluid looking way to move around. Think Neon White, Gravity Rush, or Ghost Runner. Everyone has a type of game that interests them in some way pretty quickly. Today I want to talk about one of those games that I don't see many people talk about, Solar Ash. I saw it first in a group watch we did with a PlayStation showcase. Seeing the vibrant art style and fluid skating over the clouds immediately had me interested. Oh, also, this design kinda got me too. Anyway, if you're interested, it's $40 on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and Epic Games Store. Before talking about Solar Ash, I want to talk about the people behind it, Heart Machine. Their first ever game was a Kickstarter darling and hit indie success, Hyper Light Drifter. Originally funded in 2013 and released in 2016, they had raced far above their original $27,000 goal with over $600,000 funded, promising a fast, vibrant, and fluid 16-bit action game. It was originally just 2 people on the team, but soon expanded to almost 10. The game was a massive hit to say the least, scoring over 80% in most reviews. Not too shabby for a game made by a new studio off of Kickstarter. I haven't actually played it myself yet, it is definitely on the list though. After their massive success, they of course had to follow it up. But it wasn't with a sequel, it was with a game called Solar Ash Kingdom. First teased in 2019 and eventually renamed just Solar Ash. It looked like it was going to keep the same fluid gameplay with just as vibrant an art style as the last game. While it wasn't a sequel, it does take place in the same universe as Hyper Light Drifter. The game is also in full 3D now, no more 16-bit pixels for them. While it is impressive they managed to enter the third dimension after only just their first game, they definitely were going to need to expand the team. 9 people just weren't going to cut it for the scope they were looking at, and expanding is just what they did, going from 9 to over 40 people on the project. And with Annapurna Interactive Publishing, they didn't even need to do a Kickstarter this time. I sadly don't think Solar Ash was too successful, seeing as I never see anyone talk about it. It looks like it was successful enough to allow a co-op sequel to Hyper Light Drifter though, Hyper Light Breaker, so that's cool. Anyway, now that you know a little more about the history of the team, it's time to move ahead and talk about Solar Ash. You play the game as Ray, a member of the Void Runners, a group whose job it is to enter black holes for various reasons, like recovering valuable treasure or just for adventure, as far as I can tell. They don't tell us a ton about them. The job today, though, is different. Very different. Today they have to enter a supermassive black hole that eats planets whole called the Ultra Void. It is, as you might have guessed, about to hit their planet. The goal is to enter and activate a new invention with the potential to destroy the Ultra Void, the Starseed. While risky, this is the only hope for saving their planet. With the plan in motion, all the Void Runners landed at different areas and set up conduits around the Starseed. Only when all of these conduits are active and with the help of a sentient super AI, Sid, can the Starseed be used. Upon entering, something isn't quite right. The already set up conduits are inactive, communication is blocked, and Sid is in safe mode and can't answer any questions. Only by destroying the black ooze in every area and defeating the massive anomalies can connection back to the Starseed be re-established. So this is the goal for the game. Go explore the remnants of planets already consumed by the Ultra Void, destroy all of the anomalies, activate the Starseed, and save your home planet, while also helping some surviving alien species along the way. Oh, also, you are constantly being told by this giant glowing person named Echo who keeps talking like she knows who Ray is and telling her it's all pointless. The visuals of the game at first had me interested, and oh baby, it didn't disappoint. They definitely still have the vibrant colors they had in Hyper Light Drifter, now with a cel-shaded look. There are a ton of little details like when you jump from a tall point and land on a cloud and sink below it before popping out like a pool floaty. They play with the perspective a couple times too, like when you get knocked into the crater, you can look up and see the landing site above you. Speaking of looking up, you can always look up and see Ray's planet above you. The more bosses you beat, the more destroyed it gets too. There aren't many areas in the game, but they make up for it by being interesting and varied. Every area is the remains of a planet that has been sucked in and destroyed by the Ultra Void, but they still have enough character and unique aspects to them to make them feel like more than just generic ruins. You have the ruined capital city and the temple of the Veruki with skyscrapers and floating railways for transport, all destroyed by these huge purple pipes with a massive purple creature resting on top. The Mire sees a large body of water turned to acid that used to be home to a crustacean species with a flying junkyard of spacecraft above. The only area that is at night is the Eternal Garden. It's home to a lot of fungi people that are obsessed with the cycle of life and death, and is the only place actually built inside of the Ultra Void. There's also a cool underground section with light up fungi and the bodies of these people who have entered the Eternal Cycle. The final area is the Luminous Peak, a mashup of a highly advanced planet fusing together with a molten magma planet with a massive orb of lava floating high above it, the heat accelerating the growth of mushrooms everywhere. Animation in the game is really solid too. The flips and spins Ray does are a lot of fun. Yeah, fun. The enemy animations are also well telegraphed too, which is something I wish more games would do. One of my favorite things in the game is this awesome flash of black, cyan, yellow, magenta, and white whenever you deal the final blow on a boss. I'm not sure if this could trigger someone's epilepsy, but I would look away from the video for a few seconds just in case. Oh yeah, that's nice. Character designs are good. I like all the Void Runners. They're basically all just in special suits, but they look pretty cool. Sid is a cool robot with a regular arm and then multiple hands coming out of another arm. The rest of the cast is just anthro animals like the Veruki and these crustacean people. Oh, and this lanky ass mushroom dude. My favorite by far is Echo though. She's a massive glowing lady that's all sliced apart and pouring blood with a huge spear in her chest. She's really cool looking and was another big selling point for me. The enemies are kind of bland though, and there isn't much variety visually besides for one being a bird. At least the bosses are kind of distinct besides the first two both being flying serpents. Some of them even use weapons. I do wish there were more enemies than just black blob with a big eyeball and a shell. Wait a minute, it's just a fucking Nevi. Now, I don't like to say things definitely take inspiration from a specific thing unless the creators say so themselves, but this shit is most likely inspired by the Nevi from Gravity Rush. They're both just black blobs with big eyeballs and shells. The only difference is the Nevi are just red glowing orbs for eyes. But even then, if you look at the concept art, they are also supposed to have regular human eyes too. It's cool though. I love Gravity Rush. It's one of my top 3 favorite series of all time, so take as much inspiration as you want from it. There isn't anything wrong with inspiration either. There's almost no art made now that wasn't inspired at least a little or indirectly from something else. But I just wish they added in more than just black blobs to fight, or at least made them more visually distinct. Music and sound design in a game is more important than some people might think. It can take a decent or mediocre game and make it something way more memorable. It can really help set the mood for an area, help with immersion, or just make an otherwise bland attack feel really satisfying to pull off. I hope you get used to the boost sound, because you will be hearing it a lot. The music is interesting, but kind of hard to listen to. Not because it's bad or anything, it actually fits the game pretty well. It's hard to find the songs online, and Heart Machine hasn't released them anywhere yet. They do have plans to do that, but the songs are actually pretty dynamic with where you are in an area and slightly change up for minor things, so it is taking a while to mix them for release, I'm guessing. Because of this, most of the music throughout the video actually isn't even from the game, but I will try to play some examples here. One thing that is interesting is that every area and boss has its own unique music, which is more than you really needed for a game this length, especially the bosses. They all do have the same song play when they are on their final hit though, and it's intense and kind of droning, and I think fits it really well. I'm pretty bad at describing what music sounds like, so I'm going to try to let the soundtrack speak for itself, but basically combat is more intense and kind of droning and stressful, while the regular area themes are a lot more ambient and calm sounding. Overall, I do like the soundtrack here, but it's hard to truly judge how much I like it until I can listen to it outside of the game. Most of the game is voice acted, with only certain things like notes you find in the environment being silent. Hell, sometimes even those talk to you.
Another planet grows larger. First it was a speck, but now I can make out where land and water meet. I cannot bear to see the death of another world. It may be the natural law here, but watching life and death on such a scale is the duty of gods, not a simple Veruki.
It's pretty good, not the best ever, but it's well above average and doesn't feel forced. Movement is kind of the name of the game here. It isn't anything too complex. You skate around, build up speed, grind on rails, jump, and attack. That's basically it. Building up speed can be slow, so luckily you have a boost you can use to go from 0 to max speed instantly. It's not like a Sonic game where it's just a go fast button, it's just a quick burst to get you going. I don't know if it's faster to just skate at max speed or constantly boost though, but I always boost. Grinding on rails is as simple as being near a rail and holding a button, but sometimes you can jump off of it and carry momentum with you while in the air, and that's pretty fun. There's a basic 3-hit combo you can do too. It's very basic, but it works. Now this is a fun one. There's a grapple you can do. You can only do it to enemies and specific grapple points. Against an enemy you can chain it with attacks though. So if an enemy has 4 HP, you can grapple and then do a 3-hit combo on them and it will kill them in one string. On a grapple point though, it'll fling you through the air and will shoot you in the opposite direction you grappled from. So if you are right above one, it'll shoot you straight down, for example. It's pretty fun and I like those spins Ray does sometimes. Now to pair with the grapple you have something called Time Slip. This slows down time for everyone, but increases your range. It is on a timer though, so you can't just spam it. This is good for when there are a lot of enemies and you need a moment to think, or when something is barely out of range. You can also climb on this black ooze to traverse around. Pretty simple there. If you've climbed in Breath of the Wild, you get it. Only no stamina. Speaking of climbing around, that's what you do in a lot of what the game calls black ooze challenges. They're just speed challenges where you have to hit certain spots in order with only so much time. Every area has these, and they are how you activate the boss fight. Sometimes they are fun and feel very intentional how they want you to do them, and other times not so much. This one in the clock tower, for example, I still don't know how they intend for you to do it. You can't boost while on the black ooze, so I always just try to land on this super weird platform that feels wrong. Other than those couple of outliers, it is pretty fun to try and hit the perfect flow and timing for these. Boss fights are the main challenge of the game, a massive creature that you scale up and take down. This is basically a scaled up version of the Black Ooze challenges. They are fast paced, take tight timing, and can be really fun. Except for this fucker. The fourth boss is by far the worst one in the entire game. I never got it down consistently and I've beaten the game 5 fucking times. I think it's because it's the only boss that not only takes place on the ground, but also does it on a small sphere like Mario Galaxy. So things that worked one time might not work the next for seemingly no reason. Like you don't go as far as you should, or sometimes it will put the target over this crack you respawn on so it's even trickier to hit. Sometimes it just stares at you too and you can't hurt it until it tries to hurt you. I dread this fight every single playthrough. I understand why most other bosses are either flying or start you with grinding up a rail to get on top of it instead. Besides for the black ooze and the bosses, the game is pretty relaxing to play most of the time. So if you want a mostly stress-free experience, there are a few difficulty options. Easy, normal, hard, and an unlockable one, hardcore. All these do is give you more or less time between hits on the black ooze and boss fights. Hardcore is a couple of other things too, like when you get hit on hardcore by an enemy, you respawn at the last checkpoint. Normally you just get knocked down and only respawn when you lose all your health. You also lose all plasma gathered since the last checkpoint too when you die completely. Plasma is the red goop you find floating around and in crystals and boxes. The only use for it is to raise max health up to a total of 5. It costs more and more each time, and you actually lose a container every time you beat a boss. Yeah, that's weird, isn't it? Usually in a game, you get rewarded for beating a boss. Not in this game though, you get punished. I think it was so that plasma doesn't become completely useless halfway through the game though. It still kinda does in my opinion. Like, yeah, you lose time having to respawn and go back to where you died, but all you really lose is plasma. And if you're on hardcore, you respawn back there anyway. And whenever you respawn, there are always shield crates that respawn too, so you're never in real danger of dying anyway. The only thing that happens if you completely die is that you have to restart a boss fight, which sounds like it would really suck, but that never happened to me once in my 5 playthroughs. I had to do it on purpose to even find out. And like I said, shield crates always respawn near you, so you are never in actual danger. So the difference between 3 health and 5 is basically just if you want to spend like 2 seconds to get health every time you get hit. The final boss, you don't even have health, so it really doesn't matter there either. So plasma feels like it was just there to fill up a kind of empty world with other things to do. Maybe you're gonna use it to do more like buy the suits or something, but it got scrapped, I don't know. Oh yeah, I haven't talked about this yet. In every area you can find these audio logs called Void Runner logs. These were left by the other Void Runners while they are in the Ultra Void and is the main way we learn about them. Fully voice acted too, and helps us piece together more about what was going on before the game. There are 5 per area, with each area having only 1 Void Runner's logs in them. They can be a little tricky to find, but you know that you are on the right path when you see one of these symbols. When we find them all in an area, we get that character's suit for Ray. The suits have different bonuses too. I'll go through them in the order you get them. Ray's suit makes time slip recharge faster. It's pretty useful. Irving's suit gives double plasma, like plasma wasn't already kinda unnecessary. Versus suit makes a boost recharge faster. This one was my favorite. Pyatt's suit heals you whenever you destroy an enemy. Gosum's suit makes you do double damage against regular enemies, not bosses. This is actually really useful as sometimes enemies will take like 6 or 7 hits to kill. Tufty's suit shows you where all the unclaimed Void Runner caches in an area are. It's useful if you don't want to use a guide, but it's the last suit you get. Probably my favorite looking suit though. The last suit is actually a combination of all suits, and you get it for beating the game. It would probably be my favorite looking, but it's the only one without a cape, so it looks kind of goofy. You can use it from the beginning of a new playthrough too, so it's kind of like a new game plus mode. Side quests. There are 3 of them in the whole game, and they all amount to go here and talk to a person to progress. They don't add much gameplay wise, but they do have some pretty interesting stories to them that tie into what I think is the main theme of the game: cycles and breaking out of them. I don't have much to say about them here, but I'll try to talk about them more in the story spoiler section. Story spoilers here, by the way. Skip to this number on screen if you do not want to be spoiled. Okay. Moving on. Now, English was my worst class in school, so I might mess up some of the story here. This is how I interpreted it, and it's not necessarily 100% what the developers intended. If you want to know whether it's good or not without being too spoiled, I would say, yeah, it's pretty good if you don't worry too much about minor details that don't really help the overall story. Let's do something a little weird here and start with the side quests first. Lyris is a Varuki woman, a race of cat/raccoon-like people that disappeared over a century ago, who isn't all there and can barely recognize she is talking to us. All we know is that she's looking for somebody, but the more we talk to her, the more we find her reliving the events of what happened to her planet before the Ultra Void. When I said she was reliving the events of what happened to her people, I don't mean that she is forced to stare at what became of the planet. I mean she literally wakes up every day and repeats the events of what happens in her head and at the locations without even realizing it. We can find a diary in her apartment to prove it. New days, same entry, only growing more and more unhinged as the days go by.
I woke up this morning with muddy paws and a sore throat. I can't stop coughing. Was I sleepwalking? He must have gone in early to work. He left me the sweetest note and freshly picked brambleberries in the icebox. How did I get so lucky? Delicious. I woke up this morning with mud on my paws and a hoarse voice. I can't stop coughing. Was I sleepwalking? Was it a dream? I could have sworn that Morris was right next to me before I awoke, but he wasn't. He must have gone in early to work. He left me the sweetest note and said he put brambleberries in the icebox for me. But when I looked, nothing was there. Woke up this morning, paws muddy, throat sore, can't stop coughing. Sleepwalking? Dream? Morris was here, next to me. I could feel him, but when I woke up, there were no brambleberries, no icebox, no Morris. Where is he? Bad morning. Need to clean my paws. Mud? Or something else. So dark. Voice hurt. Bad dreams. He was here. The note. No brambleberries.
Having to relive the invasion of the Dross, biomechanical planetary parasites, the loss of her people, leading to a rebellion against them, her husband sacrificing himself, and burying everyone she knew and loved herself. This is the only true effect the Ultravoid has had on her, if you ask me. Being forced to relive these tragedies every single day like a repeating cycle. Yes, the planet being destroyed obviously sucks, but they were doomed anyway. They might have defeated the Dross that were already there, but more would likely come, and the planet was already drained and there weren't many people left. Ahrric is a fungi man whose entire culture and people actually are native to the Ultravoid. They are all about the cycle of life and death, viewing neither of these as bad things. The Elders are who you talk to for most of the quests, and they are dead but can still communicate with you, and also those who have died and entered the Mycelium network. Ahrric's role is to raise up new people to take his place as caretaker, then to die and enter the Mycelium network, just as the Elders did, thus repeating the cycle. Ahrric, however, doesn't want to. He likes being alive and doesn't want to take on the responsibilities given to him by someone else. I am sure some of you can relate to unwanted expectations and responsibilities being thrusted onto you. Ahrric is very weak-willed and nervous though, so while he tries to die and enter the network, he can't. He keeps trying and keeps failing over and over because it's not what he truly wants to and isn't ready to do. All of the Elders are confused why he hasn't finished the cycle and joined them, except for the final one. He recognizes that Ahrric isn't ready yet and that being alive is just as important as finishing the cycle, so he should do it when he is ready.
Sporely. Your heart decays.
Your duty.
Untended.
Purpose unfulfilled.
You dare not die, yet life eludes you still.
Oh, whoa! You press the fibers of my core! Cravenly, I shirk my duty! I break the eternal cycle, the natural law!
Silence. There is no taboo in a life lived. Only a life left to waste in rot. The other Elders found growth through the ritual. They believe you are stunted. But the Mycelium network sees all.
No. A life so small, looked down upon by all who came before. I cannot bear it. I could be so much more.
No matter how many times you trek this pilgrimage, you are not ready. You are not done with life yet.
No.
The final side quest is from the Admiral of a crustacean army, Ames. He was out on an away mission to, I think, capture and sell a planet. When he returned home, instead of his planet, he found the Ultravoid. He flew in with the intent of saving their leader, the First Citizen. Ames and his crew are insanely loyal to him, singing his praises, and are even willing to enter a black hole to try and save him. He must be a good guy, right? Well, probably not. He is a politician. Upon entering, the fleet had trouble with the gravity fluctuations inside. Despite this, Ames still sent 5 scout ships to try and find the First Citizen. After they don't respond for a while, Ray shows up and Ames sends her out to find them. They are, as you might have guessed, all dead. They weren't attacked or anything like that. They simply crash landed, then upon surviving the impact, did something incompetent to get themselves killed. I'm talking about trying to lift a ship and getting crushed, climbing exposed electrical cables but turning on the power beforehand, swimming in an acid pool that they thought was a healing spring. All of these were easily preventable, and I'm not sure if the Ultravoid just messed with them or if they were just that incompetent to begin with. Upon reporting all of their deaths, Ames is able to triangulate the position of the First Citizen, under the center of a speaking hole in a bunker. Ames is convinced the First Citizen saved as many people as he could, but upon arrival, we see him sitting on a throne of gold. No other citizens were there except for some of his scouts, shot dead by the First Citizen himself. Ames, in a rage, shoots the First Citizen. Unable to process that he would do something like this, he realizes that the First Citizen lied to him and was actually greedy and selfish, only to quickly turn it around and blame the Ultravoid for messing with the First Citizen's mind, trying to find any excuse other than accepting the truth.
First Citizen Pertinax, why are you in this room filled with greed? My away team murdered. Why? For what?
It looks like Pertinax had some secrets. I'm sorry, Ames. People aren't always who they say they are.
You think I can't see that? You think I'd never heard the rumors? I sent my crew to their graves. They trusted me. It all happened so fast. Pertinax shot them, without a shred of guilt, and I unholstered my pistol. I ended the Cyclodorian Empire. It's something I can never forget, and yet I'd already seen it. No, it's this place. It must have done this to me, to the first citizen. This place corrupts everything. My people, all lost to this cursed void. No, I did everything I could for the Empire. I would send 1,000 more to their deaths if it meant I could save my kingdom.
This is no place to live. You should get out of here if you can.
Yes, save the Empire. That's what we must do. Tell Yeoman Rowe and Grimclaw to ready the away teams.
If I had to guess, the other member of Ames' crew weren't messed with by the Ultra Void. They were just incompetent soldiers that got where they were by their loyalty alone. Being more useful as yes men than an actual competent soldier. You can even find letters written by other politicians about how they were voting on something, only for the first citizen to veto the whole thing just because it would have caused people to doubt him. I told you can't trust a politician, no matter how nice they may seem. Alright, so enough about the side quests. Let's wrap this up quickly here and talk about the main plot. As you progress through the game, you find out that every single Void Runner besides Ray is dead. So not wanting their sacrifice to be in vain, Ray becomes even more determined to save her planet. The issue is, though, it's too late to stop it. They took too long to put the plan into motion, and the Ultra Void is already eaten away at the planet and its atmosphere. Activating the Starseed now wouldn't release the planet in time. One of the other Void Runners recognized this and even tried to overload the Starseed with so much energy to seemingly warp space and time. You see where this is going, right? Who, we never find out for sure. Probably Tufty, the one who made the Starseed, but it doesn't really matter. They must have realized it was a bad idea and decided to just force it into a shutdown state. Ray, being desperate, takes any chance she can get, no matter how slim. Echo has been warning Ray the entire time that what she's doing is pointless, and she has seen it over and over before. Finally revealing to us all that all of the anomalies we have been destroying weren't just monsters from the Ultra Void, they were deformed versions of the other Void Runners.
All those remnants you killed, did you ever wonder where they came from? Did they seem familiar?
This is actually backed up by all the Void Runner logs, and if you read them, you'll notice that not a single one of them mentions any of the anomalies. At this point, Ray has absolutely nothing left to lose. She killed her friends, her planet is destroyed, so she has to try and turn back time. Right as we're about to do this, Echo shows up and reveals that she is Ray. Probably saw that coming, right? Apparently, when she first tried to go back in time, she got split in two. Ray went back in time like nothing happened and repeated the exact same things every time, and Echo was outside of the cycle, knowing what was coming with no way to stop it, over and over again.
Who are you?
I'm a relic of the past, and you're the part of me that won't let me forget. Forever repeating our mistakes. We are two halves split by the Starseed, eternally tessellating.
But that means...
The Starseed doesn't reverse time. It just repeats it. Over and over, our world is ripped apart. We've never had a choice. The clouds...
Ray knows that there is no chance activating the Starseed will work, but what other chance does she have? Activating it, we thrust the spear further in, and...
Is it over?
Goodbye, Ray. All that will be left of you. Our remnants.
Waking up, we are at the crash site. Walking outside, we can see Ray got what she wanted. A chance to try again, repeating the cycle. Obviously, that's the bad ending. So instead, destroying the Starseed pulls the spear out of Echo's chest and...
For once, I can't see past this moment.
now. There's no saving them. All I did was prolong their suffering. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so...
Waking up, we're at the crash site. Only this time, it's different. We aren't Ray, we're Echo. Walking forward, there's Sid and parts of the Starseed. Moving past that, and we see Ray, the one that broke the cycle. Still becoming a remnant despite doing the right thing. Sid convinces Echo to try and save Ray, instead of destroying her. I'm just gonna let this cutscene play out, I think.
Ray? 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 You've managed to end the cycle. Time moves on. The Ultra Void is stable now.
But there's so much work to be done. So much to rebuild.
Our heart aches for the loss of those we all cared for. And the home none of us can return to. But what's left here is not without potential. This could be a place to start something new. Are you all right, Ray?
I think I will be.
Before breaking down my thoughts about the story, I want to first bring up this. I haven't seen a lot of opinions about this game, but the one that I did see the most was along the lines of, the game is good, but the story is bad, or it sounds like it was written by a 5th grader who thought they were deep. Now, I respect these opinions, but I don't agree with them. If you only look at the story on a surface level, yeah, it might seem kind of bland and convoluted, but I think it's less about the story itself and more about the themes and what the characters represent and how you can relate these to yourself. Yeah, it's hard to relate with someone who has to destroy a black hole to save their planet from destruction and tries to turn back time. These are very large scale, somewhat abstract ideas that none of us have ever experienced. I mean, I don't know, maybe you have, and if so, good luck, I guess. I like to think that Ray represents you desperately trying to fix something in your life in the same way you've tried before and failed. Echo represents the voice in the back of your head the whole way that has been telling you you have done this before countless times, yet you keep hurting yourself and the others around you by trying. You can't change the mistakes you've already made and you can't turn back time. What happened might not even be your fault. It wasn't Ray's fault that her planet was destroyed. The good ending is you finally listening to the voice and learning that sometimes it is best to just accept what has happened and start moving on, even if that might be harder to do than the alternative. I like the final line in the game, acknowledging that just because you have accepted what happened, it doesn't mean that you'll be okay right away. Things like this take time. I want to add that I don't think the game is trying to tell people that because you have failed a few times that they should give up on their dreams or anything like that. I think it's saying that you shouldn't waste your life trying to fix the unfixable and learn to accept the past and make the best of the present and the future. Well, that's most of what I wanted to touch on for this game. I'm not 100% happy or confident in it as of writing this, so I will say it clearly here. I think Solar Ash is a good game with a decent story if you're willing to look closer at the themes of it. Well worth my $40, but you might want to wait for a sale. It's on Epic Games Store, PS4, and PS5. This is my first ever video, and I've been working on it off and on for the past 10 months or so. So I kinda wanted to hurry and get it out there. I went through about 3 different scripts and ideas about how to write it. First one was a quicker video, kind of firing off things, but I wanted to go a little more in-depth than that. Second was going to be a long form, almost walkthrough sort of video that would have been about 2 hours long, and I decided this game wasn't good for that kind of thing. I am happy with the structure I picked for the final version, even though the writing might be kind of bad. But again, the first video. I figured that the best way to get better would be to just go ahead and actually make the thing and figure out what works and what doesn't for videos, while also finding out better ways to get my thoughts across. I don't know if I'm going to make any more of these, but I do have a couple of other games in mind. They're more gameplay focused, so I think I can explain my thoughts on those better than I could on a more story-based game like this one. If you have any tips or feedback, feel free to leave them in the comments. I don't really care if you like or dislike it or whatever else though. This has been Kevin, thanks for watching.